Thanks everyone for joining us. It is the second episode of Freedom Fridays. I'm Rebecca Ong with Dollars and Cents Education. And today we are going to be joined in interviewing Jennifer Broadwell. She is a clinician located in South Florida. She has a practice in Boca Raton called C of Chi Family Medicine, which is a really clever name. And she has a really great story in terms of getting out of debt and just her overall philosophy on money management. So I thought she'd be a really great person to have on as an interview. So thank you, Jennifer, for joining us.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for doing these. They're so valuable.
Cool. And so I know that you have, a really great story. So I think let's just lead into that. Well, first of all, just one question, a couple questions. So when did you graduate from Chinese medicine school?
2011.
And how much debt did you pay off?
50,000.
All right. Awesome. And you graduated in 2011, and when did you pay that off?
2019, so
okay.
8 years.
Awesome. Great. Congratulations. So it was just recent.
Yes.
Relatively recent. What month was that?
It was last year. It was in, I think, October, and I should know that because it was a pretty nice celebration.
Well, so just about a year. Congratulations. Was that all of the debt that you had?
Yes. Yes.
Cool. Perfect. Awesome. Well, I'm going to let you take it because I know that you have a pretty good story to tell. So go ahead.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So I know that paying off student loans and really any debt is such a personal story. There's so many personal circumstances that surround it. And for me, it really was as simple as sort of setting up a budget and just sticking to it. But I think that the context of the story can really kind of help to contextualize and can give us some better ideas of what are some good tools that you can use. And some of the principles I think are really important to share. So for me, there were a couple of really keystone things that worked in my favor, excuse me, and some of my struggles. So I really had to learn the difference between good debt and bad debt. Also the being able to leverage that. And then most importantly, finding mentors that knew what I wanted to know in terms of money. Obviously, we're all seekers. We wouldn't have gotten into this medicine if we weren't. And so what I needed to know in terms of paying off debt, and then what I needed to learn after that for really what to do once that was over to start to be able to make some money off of that. So those things changed. And so it's always a process, I think, of looking for new mentors and really finding the people that you want to learn from. And I think that's what's so valuable about this class, actually, this group that you've started, I think is absolutely fantastic. And I think flexibility is always the thing that helps us the most in life anyways. So I was really lucky in the sense that my first mentor was my mom. She was a single mom. We lived on a really tight budget. She worked all the time. So I tease and say I was kind of born on a budget. And so that really helped me survive both in school and just now in life. I'm still on a budget. I think I'm always going to be on a budget. And it also kind of taught me that debt was bad in a sense, which is good, but there are times when I think that I had to unlearn that for my best benefit. So in 2008, I decided to change careers and I enrolled in school. And I've immediately set up a budget for that. And I had some savings at that time and I didn't have any rolling debt. The only debt that's not true. I had a mortgage. That was my debt. But I really had the plan, because we all have a plan. I had the plan that I would work full time while going to school, and then I would use some of my savings. So I did not want to take out student loans initially. I knew that I'd have to budget not just my money, but also my time. So the school that I went to was an hour away from my home. It was a 2-hour commute, all said and done. And at the time, my car had like 120,000 miles on it. So on the first day of school, on our first break, I asked, does anybody here live up north and want a carpool? And met a gal who said, yes, sure, I do. And so from day 2 of school all the way through the entire experience. We carpooled. And what that did is that gave me a 1 hour extra time, or excuse me, gave me 2 hours a day of built-in study time. So she and I would quiz each other, and we would also listen to class recordings. And then that way I could get a little bit more time in my day to still work full time. What it also did is it cut down my mileage by half on a car that was suspect. And throughout school, we did break down a couple of times, so we had some great stories. And she's wound up to be one of my lifelong best friends now. I mean, we still talk all the time. So that worked out to be really great. And then later on that year, because that was 2008, we had the real estate crash that happened. So now my house, which was my only debt, but it was also my biggest asset, became not at all an asset. It lost all its value. And now, like, there was a really uncertain future for what was going to happen when I graduated. And I knew I was going to need money at some point to set up a practice in the future. So I had to consider student loans. And so there was a part of me that didn't want to take out that debt. But then the other side of me said, wait a second, this is the good debt. Like, good debt is when you invest in your future. And when you know that you're going to pay it back and that you will take those risks to do it. And bad debt's just buying stuff you can't afford. So I went ahead and took out $50,000 in student loans over the course of that, and still continued to work. And then when I did finally get to graduate, I had pretty low debt, which was good, but I knew that I still didn't know what I needed to know. So I wasn't ready to set up my practice just yet on my own. Instead, I really wanted to learn. And so I found a really experienced practitioner down here and took a pretty low paying job so that I could learn from her. I wanted to learn how to set up a business. What did she do right? What did she do maybe, wrong for me, for just my personal fit? And then, how could I just start treating patients and kind of cut my teeth at this art? So I took a pretty low paying job, and my student loans at that time were $503 a month. But again, just reevaluated my budget. So like during school, I took my lunch every day to save money. I still do that every day. And it turns out I like my cooking, so it works out pretty well in my favor, but it saved me a lot of money. And because I had an existing budget, I was able to kind of see where was my money going and what could I cut and what could I not. So after being with this mentor of mine for a few years, I was ready to open up my own practice. So I did the same thing I've always done, which is reach out to friends. Like, who knows more than I do that I can talk to about this? So I called a really good friend of mine down here who had a practice, and he actually had 2 offices. And my intention in calling him was just to say, what did you think you did? What do you think you did right? What would you do differently? And talk to him a little bit. And through the course of that conversation, I found out that he was only in that office for a few days a week. And so he said, why don't you come look at the office? Maybe you could just, are you willing to rent some space for me on the days I'm not here? So what I ended up doing was sharing that space. And what that did is it cut my expenses so low. So now I didn't have the startup expenses of buying all of the equipment. On the days that I'm there, it was solely my own show. So completely separate books, my own name. We were just great friends that shared space. But that kept my margin so low that then I was able to start paying extra towards my student loans. And then when I did get my student loans paid off, now I had this $503 a month extra. And I think one of the key things with debt, or for me, was that it's extra, but now I have other goals. Now I need to start thinking about retirement, and I need to start thinking about this car and these other things that I need. And also one day getting my own office that's truly my own. And so that $503 payment just automatically, I shifted into removing that from my monthly bank account and putting that into other accounts. So I talked to a CPA and got information about what was the best thing for me in terms of a retirement account, and then put a little bit of it now monthly into this car fund because that's coming. I am still on that car and we are at about 158,000 miles. So I'm still crossing my fingers with that. So that was both of those things I think were really helpful for me in keeping, always trying to keep expenses as low as I could, so that I could leverage that extra money and decide where I want to go with it next. So one of the things that I find now is, the importance of finding people that can help me decide what to do with that excess money that I've got that was the student loan. And that's not at all my wheelhouse. I mean, I came from this position that, debt was bad and that was it. And, where to kind of leverage this next is something that I'm constantly looking for now, is who are those mentors that will take me where I want to go next. So that is my story in a nutshell.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that. That was awesome. So from what I gather from this, you're really organized. You're very organized, and it sounds like you learned this was a nice gift from your mother, teaching you how to stay organized, how to stay on top. You have stuck to a budget pretty much your entire life, and it's what kind of kept you like knowing what was coming in and going out, and allocating your dollars every month towards a purpose, so that there's no coming up short at the end of the month. You don't get caught with your pants down. You don't have to then, oh, you ran out of money or something came up and now you have to turn to credit cards, that kind of thing. So, you had this really nice game plan all along the way to kind of keep you organized, because especially in school, and if you're working as well, you've obviously got a lot of things in the air. There's so many other things to think about. And um, just being able to have that portion, kind of organized and set almost on automatic. At this point, you probably have like your kind of budgeting, like monthly budget down on like automatic almost, right? In terms of like your behavior. So that just makes things that much easier, that much more smooth. And that's one thing that I do touch on and try to teach in my class. Is this, when people hear the word budget, I'm also calling it a spending plan. So you'll hear me kind of use that interchangeably. And but people, when they hear the word budget, it's this kind of automatic like allergy to the word. And they think it's restrictive. They think it's no fun. So, with all this, do you feel, I guess, Jennifer, like, do you feel you've gone without, you know, like you're missing out on a lot of things?
You know what? I don't. I mean, some of this is just like my personal tendency, but that budget is the only thing that kept me sleeping and still allows me to sleep really good at night, because I do know it allows me also to dream, because now I can dream what would I like it to look like in the future. And that dream can be so far off, but how do you get there? Just one step at a time. So I know if I can save a little bit on these things now, then what I'm really doing is I'm funding a dream. And that's kind of the way that I like to think about it. And also, I need to, I really value my sleep, and I want to sleep well at night. And the idea of debt kind of was keeping me up, so that was something that is important too, to have that peace of mind, but to have it in a way that allows exactly what you said. So it doesn't feel restrictive, but instead that's the fuel for what I get to do next. Now I can use it to fund my dream. It doesn't have to be kind of the thing that holds me back.
Absolutely. It's one of the tools that
Yeah.
helps you have your vision, and it's one of the tools that helps you get there. And, when you make purchases, regardless, whatever it is, you're asking yourself, well, one, obviously, can you afford it? But two, is this something that contributes to me achieving, this vision that I've set forth? So that's really great. That's really great. No, and I like to, well, I don't think you mentioned it in your talk, but you told me when we chatted online. I love this little tip because when you were in school, you were using your time. I notice here also, you're using your time really resourcefully, like really, like you're kind of stretching the most out of the time that you had. And I loved that you would listen to the lectures of your classes in the car, um, as, you know, using this driving time as study time. And I thought that was really smart. And I really wish that I had done that when I was in school. So yeah, it sounds like you're a really very resourceful person.
Well, and I think it's interesting too, because you put out you posted about a podcast, a Jungian podcast that talked about money recently, and I think it's such a great one, and it's so true too. Money is definitely a two-dimensional on paper thing, but it's also really at its base, it's an energetic, it's an exchange of energy. And so our time is money also, and it's our peace of mind. So yeah, to be able to have that kind of study time built in, and I like to learn with other people. So to have, on the days that maybe she didn't go to school and I had to just listen to recordings, it was nice. But like to have somebody there that, on the days she would drive, I would quiz her and vice versa. It was so nice. And then we could, sort of talk out those, any kind of questions we had. It was such a great, like, value add in terms of energy, because it saved time, but it also created a really nice relationship between the two of us. And she's one of my dearest friends to this day. So I think that, if you, for me, it's like, if I want something, what is it going to take, and then what do I have for resources at my hand? Like, who can I talk to, and who knows something about this that I don't? And even if I don't know anybody personally, like, what podcasts or groups like this can I really access and start to get a little more familiar with it? It's all such a learning process. um, and it's been so helpful. It's been really helpful. As a matter of fact, one of my dearest friends today is a financial girl. Like, she loves finances, and I really don't. I just like the savings part, but I don't know what to do with it. Like, I don't want to. I'm not so good with the ins and the outs. And that's one thing that we kind of decided early on in our friendship, after we, spoke to each other, knew we liked each other. We would tease each other. I was like, I've got your health, you help me with my wallet. And so we will talk about this stuff all the time. I'll say, oh, I'm thinking about doing this. And she'll give me all these ideas. And then she's like, okay, fine. Is your time up? Like, let's talk about my sleep now. Or, I'm like, absolutely, let's do it. So I love that idea of really, like, leveraging knowledge, time, energy.
No, that's great. Well, this was great. I mean, it's, these are also really good because I'm going to be doing a presentation to a Chinese medicine school, some students in a couple of weeks. And these are some really nice takeaways that I'll share with them, because these are, and I know that there are students on our group as well here. And so hopefully if they're watching this, they're able to kind of pick up some pretty practical tips that can help them throughout the rest of their program. So let's see if there's any, I don't think there's any questions. If anybody has questions, you can type them in. But as far as, I guess, I guess you've already talked about this, but what was that motivating factor for you to, pay off your debt right away?
Well, some of it was that idea that was just ingrained by my mom of, always living on that budget. And some of it was also that, this profession is one that we more and more were having other opportunities for actual employment, but largely, especially at the time that I graduated, there weren't as many opportunities for real employment. So you were kind of faced with either working under someone else or opening your own practice. And opening your own practice takes a ton of money. So it was also like, how am I going to, after graduation, how am I going to be able to build a practice and to really afford that? So that was a huge factor for me.
So kind of get all your ducks in a row. first and foremost before really kind of diving into anything else that's somewhat risky, right?
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, absolutely. This is great. I don't think there's any questions. And maybe one more, like what was the hardest part of this for you? If there was one.
Ooh, that's a great question. Well, I mean, it was hard. Like it sounds so simple when somebody tells a story, but there were so many of my friends. Where have you been? What are you doing? Come out with us. When you either had to stay home and study, or they were going out to a restaurant or a bar or somewhere that was going to be too expensive for me and for my budget, that I'd have to say, well, I tell you what, why don't you guys come to my house first and let's potluck? We'll have a dinner at my house and a game night. So there were a lot of moments in that, of just really trying to decide what's the most important thing to me right now, you know, this moment or something that might last a little bit longer in terms of where I spend my money.
Yep, absolutely. And I guess that's just part of being an adult. Right? Not only a
Exactly. Yes.
student, but just kind of being an adult, right?
Yes. Yes.
So
That's the trouble with adulting.
it's that's where that liver chi stagnation comes from. It's unfulfilled desires. It's part of being an adult, unfortunately.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
all right. Well, I think that was really great. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I hope this was inspirational for those of you watching. That's the whole point of me deciding to do these is to in, because people there's a lot of doom and gloom going on out there, a lot of negativity, especially on the internet. But in general, people start to feel kind of hopeless when it comes, especially to their student loan debt. They don't know where to start. They don't know how to get out under it. People kind of get trapped in IVR, by way of us being entrepreneurs and business owners. We don't have that luxury of just a steady paycheck, so we just don't know if things will kind of tank, and so we kind of are afraid to really like dive in and really aggressively pay things down. But so that's why I wanted to start these interviews and we don't hear a lot from the folks in our field that have done it, so I wanted to give them a platform and give them a voice to share their stories, and so that other people can know that this is possible. All right. Well, thank you so much, Jennifer, for joining us. And I guess everybody, I hope you have a great day, and we'll see you on the group. Keep contributing. And if there's any questions, you could always post something on the group or DM me directly. And thank you again, Jennifer.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for today. And thank you for this group. It's so valuable.
All right. Excellent. All right. So we'll see you soon.
Bye, guys.
Bye.